Josh, aka Bad Lad, grew up in Oxford, England, about 56 miles or 90 kilometers away from London. And before we get into it, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out the other entries in the Story Of series. And if you want us to cover artists we haven't covered yet, let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into it.
Kind of like, what's it over here? You got fucking, what's the big university over here?
There's a few of them.
Harvard?
Harvard's a big
Harvard,
one. Yeah.
Harvard?
Harvard is
Yeah,
Harvard's
you
a
got
big one.
So it's like kind
Yale.
of Harvard level or some shit like that. But it's like the nerd kind of fucking capital of the UK. So every time I tell someone, oh, I'm from Oxford, they're like, oh, you posh? And I'm like, yeah. So, you know, so I've kind of got like a bit of like a posh Londoner accent going now because I picked up on like all the...
Childhood had its difficulties, with parents splitting when he was only about a year old, and his mother stepping up to raise him. Despite the obstacles in her path, Josh says she always came through for him and made it happen.
Father came in the picture, and he's done a lot. We've had our fallouts and shit, and that's sorted now, which is great. But yeah, no, a lot of love to my mum. She's done everything for me. Yeah, basically, I'm hoping like once I get up, I can do some shit for her. I want to, you know, buy her a house or some shit.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like, yeah, she's always had like money issues and stuff. I want to just like fix that for her. That'd be nice. And
So she had to work very hard growing up.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, we
Definitely
were
make
on
everything
what in the UK we call it benefits. It's like it's like.
It's not the same thing over here.
Do you have benefits like when you're a child?
Yeah,
Or some shit.
we have like Section 8, which is like housing, and then we have
Yeah. We were
EBC,
in like
which
a
is food
council
stuff
house
like
and
that.
shit, and we were in like I remember my mum telling me that she used to like she'd like we'd have like £50 to last us the whole like 2 weeks or some shit, and she'd just spend it all on food for me, and she'd just eat like crackers and cheese and shit. And I was just like,
Sacrifices, man.
yeah, and she's always like, and it makes sense now because she's always just like, even as a kid, like she spoiled me rotten. She's like, anything I wanted, she'd just want me to have like the best life. And so, yeah, a lot of respect goes to my mum just for that, and I'm gonna pay her back one day. So,
Hey, shout outs to Bad Lad's mom. That's a big commitment from her. On top of the struggles that came with being raised by separated parents, Bad Lad states that he didn't have a great relationship with his father, saying that they haven't spoken to each other in over a decade.
had like any contact with my biological father for fucking over a decade or maybe longer, and yeah, that's a weird thing that I'm dealing with too, because it's like, do I message him? Do I?
Hey,
I'm
man,
like 21 now. Like, do I? I'm a guy. I'm a grown-ass man. Do I go talk to my dad?
The adversity he faced in his upbringing didn't stop him from exploring his creative interests as a child. Early on, he enjoyed dubstep, and as he got older, he expanded his listening into more hip-hop based music after getting put on to XXXTentacion. Although he enjoyed music in his youth, it wasn't his main interest. Around the age of 11, he dove into the world of graphic design, and eventually animation, where he would begin to create intros for YouTubers. He would also create a channel called Bad Arts, where he would showcase his skills. These early endeavors would be the foundation for his creativity, which he would go on to apply to other areas of his life. Fast forward a few years later, having always despised the British education system, Bad Lad would drop out of college. For our American viewers, college in the UK is where students go for about 2 years after completing secondary school around the age of 16. The American college equivalent in the UK is called university. Eventually, Josh would go on to find Scarlord through Spotify recommendations and travel to London to see Scarlord, which would be his first time ever attending a show. It was here he would be introduced to a whole new world of artists like Lil Peep and more. After the conclusion of the show, Josh was given the opportunity to chill with Scarlord and his team for about 40 minutes. During the conversation, he asked Scarlord if he should start rapping, to which he replied, "Go for it." Shit, when did you what got you into music initially?
It was all on accident. I genuinely didn't do music at all. I didn't have any intention of doing music until, well, I was doing like graphic design and shit before, and I was a graphic designer since I was like 11, and I did like animation and stuff. I started doing YouTube intros for YouTubers and shit, and we were like some of the first to do that. And then I went to my first ever gig in London, which was also my first time being in London. That was a Scarlord gig. Being like a mad like trap metal fan, it was my first experience hearing. It was the first time I heard Peep. It was the first time I heard people like Killy. It was people I heard like first time I heard. Like it was my first experience really like experiencing music, you know, authentically.
So wait, you were was this a show you went to?
Yeah,
like they were all performing.
No. It was like it was Scarlord's gig, and his DJ was like just playing all these mad tunes, and I was like, whoa, there's this whole like every song that we're playing.
You were,
it was like,
you
what
were
the fuck is
into
this?
Scarlord at this point. That's why you.
I used to be like a massive Scarlord fan, and
gotcha.
And yeah, he at the end of the gig he came out and just kind of like spoke to everyone for ages, and we just chilled with him, and he was like, we were just doing the dumb like fan shit, like, oh yeah, should I start rapping and all that stuff? Yeah. And he was like, yeah man, fucking do it, and now like him saying yes to doing that has kind of like created his like only like rival in the UK, which is kind of funny.
After this experience, he was hooked on music. Ready to try it himself, he then went on to have a talk with his parents about what he was doing, and started to record, mix vocals, and even make beats. After grinding it out in his bedroom, he released his first effort, Project Jinchuriki, in April of 2018. Looking back on it, Bad Lad says he's not a fan of the project. Josh would start shooting videos for other artists on the side, and eventually go on to shoot videos for talents under a London-based record label, Moves Records, which launched in 2017 and started pushing Afro beats. As Bad Lad continued to grind, Scarlord's now ex-manager Daniel Too Dark would contact him, letting him know he's watching. Excited to meet with Scarlord's team, he'd eventually go on to have dinner with them and keep in touch the weeks following, with Bad Lad even sending them music. Eventually, Daniel Too Dark will contact Bad Lad, requesting the stems to one of the songs he sent. Shortly after Daniel received the stems, Bad Lad would receive a call for what he thought was a record deal, but instead, the conversation would quickly take a sharp, unexpected turn. The track he sent was recorded by a female artist. On top of this, Daniel broke the news that they didn't work with Scarlord anymore. Bad Lad was offered to be brought on as a ghostwriter and to direct other artists' careers. As you probably guessed, Bad Lad didn't accept the offer. Feeling cheated, he looked the other way. His name would continue to ring bells through the underground as conversations started to center around him due to comparisons with other artists. Bad Idea would drop on March 10th, 2019, showing incredible improvements in both musical prowess and creativity. By this time, labels would start knocking, but the doors already open for Moves Recordings. Bad Lad would sign what he describes as a small deal. Bad Lad would continue to grind through 2019. When the world was changed in 2020, it really signaled a change in his own life. He would go on to fall out with his stepfather and deal with his cousin's stage 4 cancer diagnosis, amongst other things. Something he reflected upon in his track, Mother Father, with Biv. On March 27, 2020, nearly a year after the release of Bad Idea, he would improve his skills as a creative with the release of Lunatic, with guest verses from the likes of Lil Darky, Josiah, and bangers like Punk, which is currently racking up millions of streams. Lunatic arguably cemented Bad Lad's spot in the scene and showed he was a serious force in music. Less than 2 weeks after the release of Lunatic, Josh would follow up with the EP, Ballymore, and for the next year and a half, would flood the internet with music, leading all the way up to his latest release at the time of this recording, Throat Infection. He started to further develop his frequent relationship with collaborator Lil Darky, and go on to open for him on some of his European tour dates, which would eventually get postponed until 2022. He would also go on to move to London.
When I went to London, it was all just like, we love music. Like, you can go up to someone and say, before you even ask what their name is, you can be like, what music do you make? Because everyone makes music, you know, in my age
London?
range. Yeah, even if they're doing fucking like just working a job or in school, like they're probably making music. So it's always fun because like every time you meet someone, I get to have this ego trip, like, ooh, I'm this big rapper. You know, so yeah.
But now London's, I mean, I know you said the UK is kind of lacking to America as far as music scenes go, but London's got a fairly strong music scene. A lot of artists blow up over there before they actually blow up. Like Lil Peep blew up over there.
Yeah. I mean, he spent a lot of time. He spent a long time.
In January 2022, he would come to America for an extended trip, visiting New York, where he would link with Darky, Christ Dillinger, and Wendigo, and where we would meet and record our interview. From there, he would go all the way to California, where he would link with Darky again, as well as some of the other members of the Spider Gang Collective. Overall, he stated the trip was a culture shock and changed his whole life perspective. In March 2022, he would go on to move into his own place and record a full video reflecting on his life events that occurred the past couple of years, future aspirations to start a record label, and the status of his London-based collective, Love Sept, stated they've been quiet but actively working.
Please don't feel that Love Sept is dead. It's not. We're just recuperating, and everything seems to be coming together. I wanted to get this house to be a place that we can all chill and make music and shit, but Love Sept is not dead. We're working on it, trust me.
For the rest of the year, Bad Lad plans to tour in Europe and the States, ultimately leading up to the release of a new album at the end of 2022. The story of Bad Lad is far from finished. In fact, it's just getting started. And it's safe to say that with his work ethic and the ability to improve and change his sound, there will be many more chapters in the story of Bad Lad. And you can bet that as the story unfolds, we'll have the updates. On behalf of Kult Classic, this is Ben, the story of Bad Lad. Until next time, peace.